Hi there, it's Tracy DeVette from tracydevette.com, and that's spelled with a W, not a V. And in this video, I'd like to just talk about how, if you go to counseling or other sort of talking therapies, or possibly even taking medication for anxiety and anxiety type symptoms, how come you still have anxiety? And it might be years later when you decide to not take the medication anymore and you think you're doing great, tapering off it even with the help of your doctor, and think you can be fine, go back to just being normal, but it's not long before the anxiety comes back. And the reason for this is because the anxiety got set up at a time and it was a good idea for your subconscious mind to give you that anxiety. So anxiety is all about keeping you safe. Now, what happens is once that initial connection gets made in the subconscious mind between an input and triggering the anxiety, is that sometimes it just does not know when to stop. And it's triggering a response that would be equivalent to, the fright and the flight mechanism that you would get if you were confronted by a woolly mammoth or a saber-toothed tiger or something like that thousands of years ago as human beings were developing. Now, we still have that mechanism going on. And of course, it's very good in certain circumstances. It's not something that we don't want. It keeps us safe. It stops you walking across the road when something's coming, or, that you can get away if there's a bull loose in a field or something like that. So you don't want to not have anxiety. But what you don't want is this anxiety being triggered for things that it really doesn't need to be triggered for. But the same mechanism is at the bottom of it, and that's why it keeps happening. So the reason why a lot of talking therapy doesn't address this is because it's just talking and dealing with the conscious mind. So consciously, you might know exactly where this started, why it started. There's a rational reason for it. It might be very valid that you remember it, but that's not where the key to releasing it is, because it is a subconscious program. You need subconscious work to tone it down, and in some cases even get rid of it completely. Now, with the clients that I see, I specialize in anxiety, as you can see. And the aim in therapy is never to take the anxiety away completely, because you need it. It's just to get it down from a level where most clients come in and it's between 8 and 10 on an SUD level. That's a self-reported level of how anxious it is. So we aim to take the SUD level from 8 and above, which is where most clients report their anxiety when they start coming in for hypnotherapy and NLP, down to round about 2. 2 and below is acceptable. As I say, we don't want it at 0 because you need some anxiety is useful, but we just don't want it triggering for things that it doesn't need to trigger for. And give you that very, very visceral and systemic response that can be quite terrifying at the time. You don't want that happening for things that are arbitrary, like going to the shops or going out for dinner or socializing, or hearing somebody cough and thinking that they might be vomiting instead, even just terrors of certain things. So it could be an animal, it could be an insect, it could be a reptile, something like that that just triggers this massive emotional and systemic response, which is out of all proportion to the actual danger of it. And that's because the subconscious mind doesn't really know what the danger is. It just knows there is danger, and that's why it's giving you this response. Now, what do we actually do? So what can we actually do with that if we're not just talking about it? So in my sessions, the first session will be spent normally of my 4-session program, which is the Rapid Anxiety Release Program. It's 4 sessions because the first session tends to be a get to know you session, like what is the problem, how it's affecting you, and what you'd like instead. Then we get straight into the relaxation, because most people with anxiety, by the time they actually get help or looking for help, it's normally quite pervasive. And even things just going to work and back in the car or catching public transport or something might deem to be really stressful and anxiety inducing. So our first hypnotic session is just to give the system a break. Just give it a break from all of this stress and anxiety and this overthinking. Just get it into a nice, peaceful state. After that, we can start working on specific issues. And this is where it's not just hypnosis. There's quite a lot of NLP techniques in there and other ones that people they've got names, it depends who has written about it, but it's basically eye movement desensitization. Those kind of techniques are very helpful. There's other ones that we utilize, such as tapping, breathing exercises, stuff like that. So you can actually just calm the system down and think about these really anxiety-inducing thoughts, but remain calm or practice remaining calm when we have them. And that calms down the trigger response, because your subconscious mind then is not getting this response of like, oh, there's something terrible going on, because it's like a feedback loop where one, the physical sensation and sensory sensation triggers the anxiety response, and then the anxiety response triggers even more awareness of that fear and that terror, that social anxiety, that panic, where you just want to get the heck out of there and go to your safe place, which is normally home. People rush. I've heard of people rushing out of halfway through a meal or at some sort of social gathering, or even just at a bus stop or in a shop. That's that kind of anxiety is crippling and debilitating. You can't get on with your life properly when that's happening. But rest assured that there are techniques that we can use. There are therapeutic techniques that we can use, and we can also teach you ways of calming your system down. So having anxiety is not the end of the world at all. It's simply your subconscious mind being triggered or triggering this response in response to some sort of stimulus or information it's got from the outside world. And it may not be, it can't really judge the extent of how dangerous it is. It's just hitting the danger button and just starting this response off. And just talking about it, you can go for counseling for the rest of your life, and you might never ever get the better of this. But the 4 sessions, 4 to 6 sessions, the 6 sessions are if people are really, really struggling, and this has gone on for a long time. But most of this should be cleared, or the anxiety at least reduced, within the first 4 sessions. And that's why my rapid release anxiety program is 6 sessions. And we do a lot of subconscious work, because that's where the release needs to happen. And yeah, you can go and have a look on my website at all sorts of wonderful tales and results that people have had on there. That just, it keeps me doing what I do, because it's just an incredible privilege to be able to help people at this level let go of the stuff that might have been around for decades or most of their life. So there we go. The key to anxiety, deep felt anxiety, It's a subconscious program, so you need subconscious work to actually get over it. And in my next video, I'm going to talk a bit about how we do that in more detail. So this is Tracy DeVette from tracydevette.com. As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And if you go into my YouTube channel, you'll find a lot more videos there with tips to help you with anxiety.